So you're talking
Yes.
about from the very initiation of actually creating the requirement specification in the first place, right through all the negotiation
Yep.
stuff, but also then in the delivery phase, but preempting all the problems that could come up in the delivery phase. And
Yep.
what one of the things I find, well, there's two things I find interesting about that. One is when you get the resistance, which is that whole thing of like, oh, people see procurement as the police, and they, stopping them from doing this and that. And that's a thing that I think is changing massively,
Mhm.
and is kind of a little bit of an old viewpoint. But the second thing is the fact that procurement typically aren't targeted on anything that involves post contract.
Mhm.
And I find that really interesting because that is probably the biggest gap. I mean, there are gaps all over the place in services procurement and statement of work.
Mhm.
And when I talk about the value that people like yourself can provide, it's valuable because we're talking about a lot of money and really important work that's growing in importance. I mentioned to you, I saw a sourcing industry group and spend matters survey on the kind of gaps around technology when it comes to services procurement and statement of work. It's traditionally not really being looked after. It's not like buying goods and materials. It's very, very underserved, but it's an area that's massively growing in spend. The whole world is trending towards services. So that value, the business should be welcoming it. So is it, just be interested in your views on those two areas, really. One, where the business has resistance to procurement getting involved, like you say, the kind of throwing over the wall concept. And secondly, around where procurement aren't really worried about anything other than initial savings or sticking to budget and just getting it to the point of contract.
Right. Well, and I have to play that balancing game quite a bit, only because uh, it- being a currently because they're a very small group that's doing it. So I work with people across the organization on their SOWs, and I do get a lot of resistance on. So what you have views on the scope or whatever, and I'm like, well, no. I'm not concerned about the scope as much as you are. My idea is, do you have it well defined enough that you're not going to run into issues? If you're not being able to break it down into, I usually say, you know what, you've probably broken it down to the finest level. If you can say yes or no, is it, did you deliver it or did you not deliver it? And you want to get to the point where you can have those. And I'm like, okay, we're getting into binary code. Yes, is it a one or a zero? You want to break it down. However, it doesn't all 100% have to be in the SOW, but you want to get to the point where you've got it defined well enough that you can easily go in and go, okay, here's what we're doing. Yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, and especially on the milestones. But I try to when I try to get my point across to our business folks is that I'm not talking from because I'm the police. That's not exactly as you said. I'm not talking from that perspective. So I've seen a lot of really great projects that have gone really well, and I've seen a lot of great projects that went off the rails and died, and I've seen really bad projects from the beginning and that have never gotten off the ground at all. So with that, having seen that, some of the things that I've seen, and hopefully they take that seriously, and having been in the industry for so long, I feel like I've aged. My hair used to be brown. Now
So
it's
did
all
mine.
gray. Well, yes. You've
I
you've
think it was
you've
brown
gone through the same,
when
yeah,
I was
gone through
about
the
10.
same of evolution, but mine is entirely gray now. You can't tell, but it's entirely gray. And having that experience is that a lot of lessons learned, and there's experience behind that. But I also want to say, hey, if my we're on the same side, number one, we're on the same team. We're Our goals are the same. We want a successful project. But I also say statements of work are really, they're my bread and butter. They're what make me well, I try to express my passion for it too, but I've seen them, and I'll toot my own horn. I felt like I was a really good project manager. I built teams. and it would be teams across vendors and business folks and IT folks. We would all be a team. We built teams that worked really well together. And part of that is you're setting the stage with the SOW. The SOW kind of like it is having a good SOW sets you up to a great kickoff. And I'll tell you, a great kickoff leads to a great project. And then and it just continues down the road. And there's this old commercial here, TV commercial, and it was for some cooking device, and it was basically you put your food in there, you set it, and you forget it. And a lot of people feel like, okay, the statement of work, once you've gotten it written, got it signed, you file it in the file and you never look at it again. And I tell them, nope, this is going to be what you look at least weekly. The project manager needs to look at it. I also say, hey, share it with your team. Okay, maybe not the commercials. I know that's real sensitive for a lot of companies. Don't share the commercials, but everybody should know what was agreed to in the SOW.